All right, guys, this podcast we need to bring back because we need to talk about AI. There's a lot of fear mongering going on with AI, and it's almost becoming bothering. I just watched a video with Adam Neely. Shout out to Adam Neely. I recommend you guys subscribe to his channel. He's a very, very, very well established musician and a thought leader in this space. I want to firstly respect him. In the initial part of the interview, he was, making solid points, kind of almost contrasting why the fear against AI doesn't make sense. And then he goes into further into the interview, and then it kind of leans into the fear of AI, which I was like, why? So as teachers, I think we need to have contrasting points here because there's no right or wrong. Firstly, let's start there. But here's what I want to do in this video is not scare you guys to death. I want to show you guys applicable things you can build with AI. Let's start there. Then let's talk about all the philosophical things. Okay, so firstly, here's a system I actively use. And this is my thumbnail system. For example, I built my own command center. Command center is the thing I recommended, and I got the initial idea from Guapdad 4000 because he had a command center for, I believe it's OpenClaw he was using. So here's what I do. I basically come up with video ideas. You can come up with video ideas. You can come up with competitive research. I, go to these sometimes, but most of the time I come here when I'm done a video. I need a thumbnail real quick. I go to my thumbnails tab and I click on here. Let me show you guys the process. And so basically I'll do this in real time. Let's go to new thumbnail and let's just make up a title. So I'll go to asset library. I'll click select. I'll select myself. And let's say I want to talk about FL Studio. So I'll click the FL Studio logo. Then we'll hit next. And here I'll type a prompt. So let me move my camera so you guys can see. So I'll say, okay, top 10 mixing tips for FL Studio. Literally, I'm going to show you guys in real time. Now I use different what are called models underneath the hood. And I built this entire thing through what's called Claude Code, which I recommend you guys download today. You need to not waste time with your life, okay? And download Claude Desktop right now. This is what you need to do. I've been a CEO and a business owner for 12 years or so, since 2014. This is the greatest invention I've ever seen in my 12 years of business. This is the most leverage I've ever had in my entire life. Imagine you had at least 100 PhDs in your whole staff. You now have that inside of Claude Code. Okay, that's how powerful this thing is. In the beginning, you will be confused because you won't know how to apply this AI stuff. So I recommend you guys learn about the difference between a chat, the difference between agentic AI, and the difference between something like a Claude Code or Claude CLI. You'll learn that over time. You don't need to memorize this, and this isn't as complicated as crypto. As you guys know, when Web3 hit, it was very complicated. It was almost like a wall of just information you needed to even begin to understand Web3. It was very complicated. AI is important because it helps you understand it. And that's the beautiful part about AI is that it's the best communicator. Okay. So as you guys can see, I don't use Claude Code as much as I used to, but I was on a 25-day streak. My peak hours were 4 a.m. Okay. My active days was like 25. My total tokens was like 12 million. You guys saw that video where I showed you guys my stats, but now I use a mix of Codex, which is the open AI version. And I use Claude Code, which is Anthropic's version. So these tools allowed me to build stuff, and I'm going to show you guys what I've built. So for example, here's one of those things. It's called my command center. This is on my computer and I don't sell it. So basically I have this set up to where, let me move my camera. The new OpenAI GPT Image 2 is the world's greatest image generator, in my opinion. Currently. Okay, so under the hood, I can select different models. And what this means is, imagine you built your own Xbox. Well, you can swap out the video games. Gone are the days where we have to go to the PlayStation to play Grand Theft Auto, go back to the Xbox to play Halo, go back to the Nintendo to play Mario. We can play it all on one system, metaphorically speaking. And models are the video games, and your harness or your app or whatever it is your console. Okay, so what I'm going to do is set this to GPT Image 2. Okay, and I'm going to hit go, and I'm going to do this in real time, so there's no editing unless I have to sneeze or something. That's going to happen. I'm going to show you guys in real time. Now this one does take more time, but it's a higher accuracy in my opinion than any other model. So I could click off of this, but I don't want to mess it up just in the case that it has any errors. So what are some other apps I've been creating? For example, I have a chord code app. You guys can hear that piano. Let me load up what's called the BusyWorks Beats chord codes. Now I'm still building this, but for example, let's say you wanted to understand this big chord. Now, firstly, I have to set my MIDI device. So let's make sure my Chronos is turned on. All right, boom. And now when I play a chord, it shows me the actual voicing of the chord, and it translates it using what's called my chord code system. My chord code system is one of my most powerful systems for anyone to get into music theory. So for example, I can close my eyes, pick a note. You guys can see my eyes are closed. All right, so I'm going to count up my keyboard note by note to finish out a chord. All right, so let's make the minor chord, for example. The minor chord is 0, 3, 7. Wherever you start is the 0 point. So 0. Count up your keyboard note by note. 1, 2, 3. Okay, and then keep counting. 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, you play all these notes together. It's a minor chord just like that. And now you're learning chords instantly. So is that knowledge AI because now I help somebody get into music theory instantly? Am I cheating the system because I showed them how simple harmony is? Like, that's how we sound when we critique AI for making something more simple, as if there's no creativity. So for example, I can revoice these chords, okay, into a very jazzy spread like this. Chord voicing is one of the most magical things about music theory. And now I can see, okay, using my chord code system, now I can understand how this is actually voiced. So I have my root note down here. I have, now in this case, I'm going to revoice it for you guys. I have a perfect fifth, which is 7 notes up from the root note. And then I have what's called the 14th, or the 14, pardon me, which is the fifth of the fifth. So basically it's root note, perfect fifth, which is 7 notes up. 7 more notes up, you have what's called the ninth. Okay, and then I'm playing a minor chord on top. Now we can also switch it to this. Okay, but now I can see, okay, how am I actually voicing the chord? Not just, you know, third, flat third, da, 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 da. Like, it's based on understanding the chord code system. It's built on my proprietary approach to music theory. Now we can see over here, the thumbnail is done just like that. Top 10 mixing tips for FL Studio. And what my system will do is allow me to templatize this, to save it, to like it, to dislike it if I want different results. And boom, all I got to do now is just hit the upscale, which is another API call. It's called to fall.ai to trigger what's called the Topaz upscaler. So just like this. Now, the only downside to upscaling currently is that upscaling requires a different AI model. So for example, if I make a thumbnail with Open AI's, what's it called? GPT image 2, and then I run it through Topaz. Topaz has to make the image bigger to upscale it. But the issue is Topaz is not ChatGPT's image 2 quality. So it might mess up some text. You guys may see this garbly text in the corner. Hold on, let me zoom out. Hold up. Where we go? Where's the thumbnail? Okay, that needs to, well, that's one of the things that needs to be fixed. But basically it adds a little garbly text when you upscale, okay? Because it's not OpenAI's version of output. It's just using its own AI model to chisel stuff. So you may get things like artifacts like this, for example. So that is one of the final frontiers in terms of image generation, is simply getting the upscalers to be at the same quality as the actual image generator itself. Now, sometimes I do sacrifice that quality and upload it regardless. People can't really see anyway when you're on a mobile. The picture's like very small, so they're not really going to see that much detail anyhow. But it's for TV thumbnails that I need more quality. Now, I used to waste 2 hours a day just doing thumbnails in Photoshop, 4 hours, just for it to look not good, okay? And I had to be honest with myself to say I'm not good at AI, or, you know, not AI generation. I'm not good at image generation through Photoshop. I paid Photoshop many hundreds of dollars over the years, okay? And I need to just be like, okay, I'm wasting time here. As a business owner, to keep delivering the, you know, the volume that you guys expect, I have to keep stuff moving. Imagine I spent all my day, 4 hours a day, trying to fiddle with a thumbnail that doesn't even increase the click-through rate for people to watch my stuff. I just wasted 4 hours a day because now I did something that actually got me worse results, and I spent the time to do it, the time cost. So as a business owner who's primarily known for teaching and music production, why would I waste my time doing image generation in Photoshop? So that is something I would leverage AI to do. Now, all the graphic designers that, you know, proposed offers for me back in the day, they charged way too much. They wanted $90 per thumbnail, as if I'm Mr. Beast and I'm about to launch a video and I'm about to make $500 a video. So I think there was a disconnect between the creative marketplace in terms of what they were charging versus the reality of what creators got on the back end. It's not sustainable to keep charging $90 a thumbnail, every single thumbnail, you know, for a simple creator who makes like $5 in the first month off a video. It doesn't make financial sense. They're not going to keep spending with you if you can't deliver them more value than what they're spending. You know, it's like anything else in the world. You buy keyboards because you expect to make more money out the keyboard, right? You know, you employ people in your team because the money you're spending on them, you know they're going to multiply it. Isn't that the point? So if I'm spending money on graphics and I'm losing money, that means I need to get rid of that department. Okay? And that's where AI came into play, and now it's cost effective. We can justify the actual cost now, and that's the very important thing. Now, if I need a human and I want a human style, maybe I will go to a human. I paid $300 just for a drum kit art. Let me show you guys. So this cover art right here was done by, I believe, HDR Cover Supply is the name. And I showed respect because they were the primary designers for the site called the Drum Broker. So there's a culture there. There's a significance there. It's not just me working with a designer. It's me working with the designer who made the art for the entire website. It's a cultural exchange I'm making. It's way bigger than just me needing graphics. It's me going to the go-to guy for that culture to do the graphics. So when you're selling your services, guys, I recommend you guys take your services beyond just beyond something that can be done. Like, for example, with music, there's a website called, I think it's called like Sound Better or something like that. And most people go to Sound Better because they're just selling their skills to help other people translate a musical idea. They're not in it because they love the client's song. Half the songs probably are not good anyway. Let's be honest. And they're mixing songs, not because they love it, but because they're just doing something that somebody else can't do. Okay. And they're not really doing it to put their stamp on it and say, this is my product. All we're really doing is selling a service for somebody to get from point A to point B. So if AI replaces that service, a mixing service, a production service, that's all people were buying anyway. They weren't buying the cultural exchange. Hopefully I'm making sense. They were buying the service to get something done from point A to point B. And if that's the only thing that we're selling is the ability to transform something from point A to point B, then people are always going to shop on price because it's a commodity. What we're selling is a transformation. We're not selling the culture. We're not selling distribution. We're not selling expertise. We're not selling all these fancy things that we think we're selling. We're literally selling a service that says, hey, if your song sounds bad, I'll mix it on Sound Better. And I don't like the song. I don't want to promote the song. I don't want to put it on my website. I don't really care for the customer's music, but I'll mix it anyway because I want the money. Now, how does that make that more righteous than somebody who goes to Suno with an intent and says, I want my song to sound like this, and Suno spits back the exact song that they had or a variation that they love? How does that make it better than the person who actually has an intent behind what they're doing? And I think ultimately this is an intent conversation. But when we get into intention, we also have to talk about commercialism versus intention. How do you blend those two? I think that's kind of fundamentally where it starts to have a divide. So here are some apps. I built this chord codes app using the AI agents. But I had a system, okay, that I applied to the AI system. This was my proprietary system, my chord code system. I've been teaching this for 12 something years. And now it helped me express this in a different form. Okay, I used to sell courses around chord codes and do all this coaching stuff around chord codes. Now I can just deliver an app to people and they can learn through my app. It's my mind put into a program. That's the cool part. Okay, and you can learn new chords here. There's a lot more about this. I'm still building it, but I'm trying to show you guys cool stuff that I've actually built. A lot of people, when they talk about AI, they just talk about weird stuff that like you don't really care about, like building a game. That's cool, but how am I going to apply that to my business? So I built the chord codes app. We've even used, Claude Code to help build out our plugin suite, as you guys have seen. Codex helping build out our plugin suite. For example, it's even given me suggestions for what I should do. Fix the version 6 release scripts, still shipping AI Mastering 5 and 2 branding. So it's giving me suggestions, or at least from the past history of what I talked to Codex about. Claude Code, it's basically the same thing. So I kind of use these interchangeably. There's no better or worse. It just depends on what I'm trying to do. Like I'm about to show you guys a tool that I built using my years of understanding and leveraging Claude Code, Codex, all types of code. But before I even get into this, you guys need to understand how AI has been implemented into coding way before we even saw things like Codex, Claude Code. For example, I just created a Python document here. And let me show you guys how before all these agentic things that would do stuff for us used to behave, because this is the fundamental understanding that a lot of people don't have, and they start demonizing AI as if AI is this thing that has never been used before. So let's create something here. So this document's called the subconscious mind. So let's build a dictionary called thoughts, for example. I'm just going to type in thoughts equals and then type in what's called the dictionary parameter. Now I hit enter, and I don't know if you guys can zoom in on YouTube, but if you look closely, it automatically entered text for me. I didn't touch anything. It says the number 1. So I'm going to hit tab, and it will basically automatically fill that for me. And as you guys may see on the screen now, it just auto-filled the dictionary for me. Okay, it says goal, goal, the key is goal, and the goal is start the day. Number 2, it says the goal is do the morning routine. So it's all these different goals. Okay, I could hit tab. Okay, and I hit tab, and then it basically created an entire chain of code for me. That's how coding has been done for years now. So when I hear people talking about like, using AI as cheating, I'm like, do you guys understand that software developers and the guy who created Claude Code itself, he says he barely codes anymore. Not that he doesn't code, he just uses his own system to code for him. That means he made one thing, and that one thing did everything he needs it to do for the most part. It's like having a child. Would you rather be, going into the farm, picking up the weeds yourself, or have a bunch of children and they do it for you? And that's what I'm saying with this coding thing, is that people on a fundamental level don't even understand what they're talking about when they're anti-AI. I'm like, you guys understand that everything on a coding level for the most part is AI doing auto completions or matching up variables and objects for different people. Like, if you don't understand that fundamental thing, then you'll always think that the AI machine is doing all the work. Okay, which it can now. Like, I think there was a post on Twitter, pardon me, and it was like, oh no, let me see if I can find it. All right, guys, so here's an interview with Boris Cherny, the guy who invented Claude Code. I want you guys to see. Now, this is a high level developers event where these developers are going to meet up to learn about the newest AI and all this type of stuff. So
I can ask another question for the room. Who writes 100% of their code by hand?
No hands went up. We're talking about the guy who invented Claude Code, asking a group of high level people who are into developing who codes by hand anymore. And if they're all trying to be honest, they're like, I don't code by hand anymore. That's like sound designing every single sound you use in your music production. Yeah, you can do it, but like there's a time cost. And me using samples isn't me cheating the system. It's saying, why would I sound design every single sound when somebody else can sound design it and they could waste their time? The same way music producers, for example, who drag in splice loops. If you drag in splice loops and you're anti-AI, you are hypocritical, in my opinion, because somebody else did the work. All we're doing is literally dragging and dropping something into a session. There's no work involved. I can literally drag a splice melody, a splice drum kit, call it a beat. How's that different than me going into Suno with an intent, a purposeful vision that I need translated? Splice isn't even your vision. It's somebody else's vision. So that's even worse, in my opinion. So when there's this anti-AI rhetoric, I just go, there's so many hypocritical things about music production. Like, for example, I can sound design my own kicks. Why would I want to waste time doing that? That's when I go to somebody else's sample, because they save me time. It's not that I can't make that 808 that buzzes like that. It's not that I can't make the kick. I just don't want to sit there tweaking a sine wave until I get the perfect sound to match that. So it's not that we can't do something and we're leveraging AI. It's we can do something and we're leveraging AI. That's the main difference. And I think people are fighting this battle of like, people can't make music, so they just run the AI. And so what? There's people who can't make music and they hire producers. There's people who produce who hire musicians to play the actual melodies underneath. There's a lot of industry producers who don't even make their own melodies. They just add drums and boom, 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 or boom, 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 boom. That's all they add. The guy in Germany did the melody. So if we're doing all this puritanism that you need to create everything about your song, I could easily expose that that's not been done on an industry level. Okay, I've literally seen sessions with top people where they're literally just in Ableton dragging loops in as if they're producing in real time, and the artist is sitting there vibing, but all they're doing is dragging in loops. And I'm not saying there's a negative to that. I'm just saying that why do we glamorize music production as if it has to be hard for somebody to like be verified as a music producer? And I think a lot of people are ultimately just fighting their purpose in music, which is to go in for the love of the struggle. That's what we actually love, is the challenge of figuring out, okay, if I have, let's go back to chord codes real quick. If I have this chord here, F minor, and I go to C, so it's like, okay, what's the next chord? Now I have to go into my music theory brain to use knowledge to say, okay, I could do a dominant chord. Okay, but I have to learn and struggle to get to that point. And that's what people are trying to say that people have to have in order to be verified musicians and music producers. And I'm like, why is it the requirement about how I play the game? There's some people who literally press one key, it plays chords for them. There's people who sample music from other people's work and just put it into FL Studio. Some people, there's classic hip hop beats where they literally looped one bar of somebody else's music, dragged in another loop from another, sound designer, and rapped over it and called it a song. So how is that different than me going to Suno with an intent, okay, a purposeful outcome, and using that tool to translate? How is that any different? Okay, and people can say, okay, they stole the music and all this type of stuff. Now I'm gonna have to do a different video about, and there's actually a really good video about how AI models are trained. I think I shared that on my community tab, because he goes into much more depth than I ever could, because he actually is in the world of AI. Me, I'm not that deep into it to where I know all the nuances of the studies. So I'll have to reshare that to the community tab for you guys, or link it below. Okay, so what else have we built with AI? So for example, when people tell me that, using Claude Code and Codex for my plugins is worse than using other apps like Max for Live, like, I want you guys to understand, I built this Max for Live drum processor, and basically it looks like this when you import it into Ableton, but when you open it up, it has all these modules behind the scenes. How is this any different than Splice for plugin developers? How is this any different than me going into my IDE and it completing the code for me? I don't need to know what a biquad is. I don't need to know the C++ DSP behind the scenes. I don't need to know what overdrive is in terms of the formula, the mathematical formula. I don't need to know what tanh means. I don't need to know what multiplication is, even though it's pretty simple. It's like we're using pre-made modules based on somebody else's brain, the same way we're using somebody else's drum in our beat, the same way we're using somebody else's hi-hat. And most of those drum kits were stolen from somebody else's drums. And it's just like, we producers are so hypocritical. If you have a drum kit where you literally sound design none of the drums from scratch, you are a hypocrite. If you're a music producer who uses Splice and you're anti-AI, you are a hypocrite. Okay, I'm being so straightforward, because this anti-AI rhetoric is just holding people back for no reason, in my opinion. It's like we're refusing the technology that we pleaded for, we begged to be released from these major labels and their strong arm tactics over us. Now God gives us a tool that says, hey, here's the key for the shackles that they put on you. And we're still like, no, I want to fight to have my shackles on. I want to be bound to the music industry. I want to be bound to some controller over my life. It's like, now you're choosing to worship the music industry system. You're choosing to worship. You're at this point, you're not choosing your freedom. You're choosing your worship of, in my opinion, a demonic system to pimp people out of their ownership, their rights, their revenue. It's just built to control. It's a bank. Okay. How is a bank any different than the music industry? So these are, points. There's another app called Highs, for example. I've been using Highs for my older projects. You guys saw Hercules, Hypnos. What's the other one? Man, I've done so many projects on Highs. And I want to shout out Pirate, who put me on to Highs. I want to shout out to Amin as well, because he initially got me set up with Highs. The issue with Highs, and this is no shade to Chris, I believe, who runs Highs. He created a system where you can basically create your own sampler. You can create your own effect plugin. You could do the synth plugin or the effect plugin all in here. My issue is that this fundamentally is built off of a different framework called Juice. So this is like, okay, imagine you have C++ as like the foundation to the house. Then you have the first floor is Juice. And now we're building another floor called Highs on the second floor, but it's built off of that first floor. And I said to myself, if I want to learn how to build houses, I can't just look at the second floor. I have to look at the foundation. That's the key to the house, is the foundation. So I said, let me go down a layer. Okay, let me go to the Juice framework. And I even tried to go underneath that layer to the C++ and tried Rust, for those who understand what that is. But the issue is basically you need a framework, or I shouldn't say need. Frameworks are preferred because they give you a graphical and logical system that you would have to literally create from absolute scratch, which could just take time. If you guys have taste and you just want to sit there for months to develop your own framework, go for it. But there was just certain things about Rust, visually speaking, that it just would take too much time to come up with a visual system and all this type of stuff. So basically, Juice is like a DAW for plugin developers. That's basically how it is. But there's no easy way to go about Juice. Now that Claude Code and Codex are now here, now there is an easier way to communicate with the Juice C++ and all the different files they have in their database. So what I'm saying here is this, their source code I meant to say. So highs, for example, you click the FX button, we can go to different things like delay. Now, most plugins you guys see are literally just highs with different user interfaces, meaning there's modules that are pre-built and people just literally reskin the plugin interface. That's why I said my plugins, I don't want to make it about the skin of the plugin. I want to make it about the sound, because if you go into here, there's pre-existing things like, FFT, there's chorus, there's what else is in here? Convolution reverb, where you can upload your own impulse responses. There's compression. Okay, now for pros, yeah, you can dial it in to be your taste. Great. But some people want to do what's called custom DSP. And I believe they put this in the script effects. I forget, I haven't used this in a while. Okay, so you can build out your own let's just do this, your own DSP network. So I can click in here and go even deeper on a meta layer. And almost like how FL Studio Patcher, you can kind of patch all these ideas together, or like Max for Live, how there's these different little things we can use and kind of create our own signal flow. The same thing here with highs. You can go in and look up, for example, a tan function. So if I want a tan function in this chain, I could apply it just like that and get like clipping type of sounds. Okay, but you have to understand signal flow, and you have to deal with the limitations of this person's system, because they created a whole system over top of the Juice framework. So I said, why am I abstracting an abstract thing? I need to go back to the source. Okay. And I just settled at Juice because Juice is used by the industry's top plugins. And I said, why am I trying to make my life more complicated, building my own framework from scratch? So my point in saying all this is to say plugin development has always been, or has mostly been, a modular process. People aren't going into the code and typing in freaking like every little detail about their plugin. Most people are using modular systems. Okay. And whether that's Max for Live, whether it's Rainbow, whether it's highs, these are modular systems that do the hard lifting for you. Why would you code from scratch each section? It would just waste so much time. Okay. Unless you need it to be something very specific. So that's how coding and making plugins always was. So when I go to Claude Code, I'm proud because I'm actually using my intent. I'm actually using my brain. I'm actually using my ear, okay, my expertise, and I'm shaping a sound. So for example, let me run this sound we got from Google's Lyria 3 Pro. And let's send it to the mixer. Open up AI Mastering 6. Now version 6 should be done by this weekend, okay? So for example, if I have it off, and we do need to give it some headroom for this to work properly. So let's be fair and give it some headroom. So now the plugin is off, and this plugin was built using and leveraging, again, like I said, if I type in thoughts into this IDE equals dictionary, hit enter, and then I hit tab, it autofills it for you. So it does all the tedium of all the in-between stuff for you. It helps you solve things that you can't even see. It solves bugs. It's, stuff that is just technical on paper things that humans created. It's not even a creative process. Half of coding is trying to figure out why this system over here is rejecting this system over here. That's half of the battle, is like making sure stuff translates over to different systems. It's not even about the creativity of what you're creating most of the time. So I focused on the creativity of this. Okay, Claude Code did all the technical in-between stuff. I focused on the creativity, and it's based off of, we built so many systems that led up to this one system. You guys saw the earlier renditions of the channel strip, the compressor, the smart compressor, the EQ3. I gave out the EQ2. We did there's so many projects, the limiter, the tape emulator, the Sonics machine. Oh, I have a list. I can just look. Duh. Okay. We even built a plugin for 808s. I've done the FX plugins in the past using highs, Beige Rage, Hades, Black Box, the Car Test plugin, all these different plugins. And I took the best of all those projects and I put it into one thing. And this is my crown jewel here called the BusyWorks Beats AI Mastering 6. So here's before. Okay, now as I kick it on, I want you guys to listen to the realism of the song. Now this is AI generated music from Google Lyria 3. And all I got to do is turn knobs. Here's before. Here's after. told you guys, I pit my stuff against Isotope Ozone. I pit my stuff against Master Desk from Brainworks. I pit my stuff up against all the online mastering from BandLab to ARIA mastering to eMaster to Waves mastering, BandLab, if I didn't already say that, Lander. Okay. And in my opinion, my version sounded much clearer and much better. Okay. My goal is to keep getting, it's to the point where version 5 and version 6 are like very close. It's hard to get better and better and better. And this has become my obsession, is how do I make this even better? Okay. If I've already passed the world's top, well, they're not the bench anymore. My own self is the benchmark. So now I'm saying, how do I make myself better? And that's become my obsession. And I have to use a lot of my ear. You can't just say, hey, Claude Code. You can, don't get me wrong. You can say, hey, Claude Code, make me a mastering plugin. It will do something for you. I'm not saying it won't do anything for you. However, this that you guys see on the screen is more than just something doing something for you. You have to give it a logical process. You have to have a knowledge of craft, because now I'm at the point where it's so good. The question is, how do you make good gooder? How do you make best better, bester? And it's tricky because it's a mixture of psychoacoustics. It's a mixture of human psychology. It's a mixture of what do people actually prefer. It's not a technical thing anymore. It's all creative at this point. And so me communicating with Claude Code, for all the naysayers saying that, oh, it's just an AI chat GPT, go ahead, type into chat GPT, make me a mastering plugin. It will not sound like this, because this is not just a technical thing. The same way with music theory is not just technicalities. Oops. My bad, y'all. I forgot to have my MIDI controller tied up to this. But it's not just technicalities in music theory. You guys know that basically I can go to any scale, for example. There's no like preset path I have to take. You know, let's open up chord codes, for example. So I can go from the root to the fifth. Then I can switch it up to the fifth. I could just switch anywhere. I could go from, as long as I'm resolving these chords, there's no predetermined place that I'm going with this. I'm literally just picking from random stuff. Which says I have to go to A major versus A minor ninth, which I would normally land on there. So my point is, coding can be creative just like music. There's no predetermined have to do technical thing about music, the same way there's no predetermined have to do thing about when you guys develop your apps and all your softwares. So that's what my thing has turned into, is a beast, because it's literally my brain as if it were applied to every single song. And I'm trying to figure out a way where I can make a plugin that sounds good on every song. So I've introduced this new feature called AI Master, which basically will do the mastering for you. Think of it like, you know how Ozone has their, what is it called, AI Assist? Just click this button. Just click the AI Master button. And it will set the levels and all the parameters for you. So let's start back over, because I already had it set. So let's do this again. Now, my thing now in terms of getting this out by this weekend is figuring out the best universal approach to the AI Master to where it sounds good across all genres. I've tested the Ozone thing. It sounded so weird on trap. Like, it was weird. It was like it put it into a whole different phase environment. But let's click here and let's just see it work from scratch. So here's just the analog mode that you guys are hearing. Sometimes it overshoots depending on the level, so just pull the loudness back. You want to hit the AI Master button during the loudest part of your song. And all I got to do now is just turn up the other knobs. Here's before. Crazy. And for those people who are naysayers, they say, okay, why are you running to AI to code your plugin and all this type of stuff? I'm like, you guys understand that I used to pay developers thousands and thousands of dollars to develop plugins, thousands and thousands of dollars to develop plugins. And they didn't even give me exactly what I was looking for half the time. So I want you guys to use these tools to build stuff that actually makes your business better. Start with a dashboard. I recommend that. Then you can work on different projects until you chisel out a project. Everything will be an MVP, a minimal viable product at the start. But over time, you'll start building up these projects and you'll create an amalgamation of ideas and they'll kind of merge into one. That's how some of these great apps that I've created have occurred, is like I had a small idea. iterated on one idea, took the feature from this idea, put it over here. And I just want to encourage you guys to use AI for, whatever you guys want. Now, in a different video, we'll cover AI music specifically, but I just really hate how people are putting out this propaganda and fear mongering around AI as if it's just destroying everything. Again, AI music exists. So what? What is it changing? It exists, and what? There's AI videos on YouTube. You guys know I don't complain about the AI generated content on the social media apps that are taking away attention. I don't complain. I just be better. Isn't that the point? If you're so good at music, why can't you outperform a computer? Why are you complaining about a computer? If music is all about being human made and you're better than a machine, you claim, then why are you worried about the machine? All right, y'all. So thank you guys for watching. It's GameForBusyWorksBeats.com. Peace out, guys.